Good evening, and welcome to Counterculture with Danielle D'Souza Gill. The culture's gone crazy, media's gone mad, and reason has become repugnant. Here we focus on facts and how to fight back. Tonight we'll be discussing the importance of the American family. We'll also speak with author Peachy Keenan about this important topic. G.K. Chesterton said, "The act of defending any of the cardinal virtues has today all the exhilaration of a vice." If that was true in 1901 when those words were published, it is 1,000 times more true in the world of the 21st century. After all, we live in a country where concerned parents are labeled as domestic terrorists for expressing criticism in a school board meeting, and if they protest against that indignity, they'll find themselves flanked by no less than 6 patrol cars from the Department of Homeland Security.
So this is how many cars have now showed up for the parents' rally. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What kind of America is this when the Attorney General sics his Homeland Security on parents?
If you identify as traditional and prefer a traditional form of worship, you should understand that the FBI is currently seeding your faith community with paid informants. And as we've seen in the Whitmer kidnapping and the January 6 cases, these informants aren't there just to spy on you. They are actively working to frame you and your faith leaders. On the flip side of the political spectrum, the same DOJ is stuck in perpetual Pride Month, constantly voicing support for enforcing special status protections for gays, transgenders, even where such laws do not normally apply. The establishment could not be less ambiguous. The United States Department of Justice believes that traditional virtues and values are so dangerous to society that they will not hesitate to label proponents as extremists and then expend enormous amounts of resources to quash them by any means necessary. There are people locked up right now in federal prison for crimes that can only be described as the defense of virtue. Virtues such as valuing human life, freedom of expression, or wanting to protect the innocence of children. It's hard for rational people to understand the government's motives here. After all, traditional values become traditional because they've been vetted by centuries of previous generations. People have seen what life is like, both with and without these values, and know that these values work. They support society, they foster stability, they grow trust in one's fellow man and in our institutions, and not to mention they are also true. That is exactly the contention of the anti-traditionalist left, that our values are flawed and they inflict widespread harm on society, and in their minds the greatest damage is being done by something known as the patriarchy. What is the patriarchy? Well, in normal circles, patriarchy refers to a social system where fathers, men, and so on are the heads of the home, but among leftists, the patriarchy is something far more insidious. According to everydayfeminism.com, patriarchy is, quote, a socio-political and cultural system that values masculinity over femininity. They say that this cultural system is harming all of us all the time. Patriarchy perpetuates oppressive and limiting gender roles, the gender binary, transphobia, and cis-sexism, sexual assault, the political and economic subordination of women, and so much more. And it is out of the utmost importance that we prioritize dismantling the patriarchy in our intimate lives, as well in a larger systemic sphere, end quote, they say. Well, that sounds bad. Upon hearing that, your response might be alarm. Maybe you've never considered how much you've suffered under the patriarchy until this moment. But notice that statement has a lot of problems. It presumes things like gender roles and the gender binary are not inherently good. Then you have made-up words like transphobia and cis-sexism. And these are followed by a smattering of scary-sounding yet wholly unsubstantiated facts like that the patriarchy caused sexual assault. So in the final analysis, no harm could be attributed to the patriarchy, even on a feminist website dedicated to eradicating the patriarchy. In the accompanying video, Marina Watanabe expands on what is the greatest weapon in the fight against the patriarchy. Watch.
All right, you guys. Hey there. I am here at the Justice Department. And this is the headquarters for where Merrick Garland is issuing his edicts against parents. And these are the parents.
We the parents! We the parents! We the parents!
Quote, transgenderism is the ultimate slap in the face to the patriarchy, end quote. So it seems when our government promotes transgenderism and oppresses its critics, it's also taking in a side in the fight against the patriarchy. Our government seems to agree with the thesis that the patriarchy is a net negative for society, but looking at what they are promoting as its antidote or substitute, you can't really call it matriarchy. What is it? Do they even have a word for it? It seems to be mainly defined by a generalized and free-floating hatred for the family, patriarchy, or matriarchy in favor of something else. So that's their notion, how they are improving our lives by destroying tradition and pushing gender identity politics that are far more confusing. It's fair to ask the question, what good has this done? Are we benefiting from years of anti-patriarchal screed and deliberately sowing gender-related chaos? It's an easy hypothesis to test. Nothing better defines the patriarch archetype than, well, fathers. So let's see what happens to families that have been liberated of their patriarchal oppressors. The statistics aren't good for the anti-patriarchy set. According to the National Center for Fathering, children of fatherless homes are 5 times more likely to commit suicide in their youth. 90% of homeless and runaway children are from fatherless homes. 80% of rapists with anger issues come from fatherless homes. 75% of adolescents with a chemical abuse problem are fatherless. 71% of pregnant teenagers, 71% of high school dropouts, 85% of youths in prison, and 90% of repeat arsonists come from fatherless homes. The National Fatherhood Initiative reports that fatherless children are at a 4 times greater risk of poverty, and their baby mamas are twice as likely to experience infant mortality. Having a father is related to improved school performance and a lower likelihood of suffering from obesity. Fathers also help mothers raise children, which improves everything like access to prenatal care, lowering postpartum stress and depression, and having more time with family. So is this the paradise of the anti-patriarchal left? Suicidally depressed children on drugs, failing at school, along with overworked, overstressed, generally dissatisfied mothers? It's typical of leftist utopian schemes. Promise a solution for all society's woes, and when you get off at their promised land, you find yourself 1,000 times worse off than you ever were before. Now, I'm not talking about women and families who do their absolute best as single mothers for their kids. I'm talking about what happens when fatherlessness is promoted by the left, when men are degraded, when they are pushed out of marriage and even disincentivized from marriage. These aren't recipes for a sane and well-adjusted society. And the data shows 2 disturbing facts. One is that fatherless homes are increasing in number across income and racial demographics. The other is that growing up in a fatherless home makes you more likely to abandon your own children, very sadly. The 2 together point to a trend that will only increase sadness, lawlessness, and chaos across the country if we don't address this problem caused by leftism and feminism.